First and foremost, allow me to thank Peter Easton, Stephen Taylor, and Lori Marsh for having me with you today. It is an absolute honor to be here. And of course, allow me to also thank each of you for your attendance and dedication to our climate crisis. I believe that each of us, each of you, has within you the ability to change your community, to change the world. And I hope that when you leave this conference, you'll think a little bit about that and decide to help out with climate change solutions and pursue your passions, whatever they may be. So, as you heard, my name is Delaney Reynolds, and I am a 21-year-old student at the University of Miami, where I just graduated with a double major in marine science and coastal geology, along with a minor in climate science and policy. I'm now actually a dual PhD and law student at the University of Miami's graduate school, also studying climate change and its impact to our environment and society. So, today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my climate activism work, as well as why I believe that the climate change crisis is the most significant challenge that the youth generations will ever face in our lifetimes. So on your screen right now is a place called Matheson Hammock Park. It's a public park and saltwater swimming lagoon that is actually not far from my home here in Miami. It's about a mile away. And it's a place where, like my father before me, I actually learned how to swim. So it's a place that my family and countless others have treasured for generations. On the left of your screen is me at age 2, rocking the Elmo bathing suit and enjoying a French fry. And the video on the right is actually from the park during a king tide flooding event, which is on a perfectly sunny day. There's no rain. And what you see is I'm actually standing on what used to be a road that sea level rise in recent years, along with Hurricane Irma in 2017, wiped out. And so water is actually coming in from the bay over a rock barrier, over this road into the saltwater swimming lagoon there on the park. So NOAA predicts that current sunny day flooding like this happens about 6 to 8 times per year in South Florida right now, but by 2030, by the time that I'm about 30 years old, we could experience 80 days a year like this. And by 2045, when I'm about 45 years old, NOAA predicts that we could see 380 flooding events like this, sometimes more than once a day during the 2 high tides. So this is the reality that we're facing in South Florida. Now, I'm the 4th generation of my family to live here in Miami, and growing up in South Florida, I've split my time between Miami and a very small 1,000-acre island in the Florida Keys called No Name Key that has just 40 solar-powered homes on it. So I grew up learning about sustainability, and in a way, you could say that my life has been surrounded by water. And so because of that, I've always had a love of nature and a fascination with the ocean. So it was those passions that led me to write, illustrate, and publish 3 children's books on ecology topics in between elementary and middle school. And while I was researching for those books, that's where I learned about climate change, and I decided to write my 4th book on sea level rise. So I began by interviewing scientists, business owners, and policymakers to learn how they were being impacted, what they were doing about the problem, and the point of the book is to tell stories about real people who are being impacted by climate change in my community, whether it's business people or residents experiencing flooding, scientists studying the topics and communicating the science, or policymakers trying to make a change in their own communities. So I'm trying to show what's actually happening and to talk about how we solve it. I took everything that I was learning, including the fact that I felt that people weren't really quite aware of the magnitude, young people at least, of what was happening or what we needed to do to solve the problem. So I founded the Sink or Swim Project, which today is a nonprofit organization that aims to educate people about climate change, as well as seek solutions to try and save South Florida and places just like it all over the world before it's too late. Now, of course, kids are very enthusiastic about climate change. You're going to see that in a few minutes at the next panel, of course, but that's unfortunately not the case with some of our political leaders. So, for example, Florida's former governor refused to do anything to address climate change, and he actually banned government officials from using phrases like climate change, sea level rise, and global warming. which is completely immoral. We've had a new governor, luckily, since 2018, and he has taken a different approach by talking about environmental issues and appointing brand new positions. And that's given a lot of people hope that things would be different under his administration. And of course, he still has time to make that the case. He has about 1 year left in his term right now. But I haven't seen anything concrete, any indication that he will commit to really addressing the core cause of climate change, which is our fossil fuel emissions. So, for example, he did create the Chief Resilience Officer position for the state of Florida. It's the very first time that we've ever had this type of position. And he filled it with an expert in homeland security. And less than a year into her job, she left to work with former President Trump in homeland security. So it's actions like that that have led me to get involved with and even try to circumnavigate politics, because the lack of political action or will here in Florida during my lifetime has been ridiculous. And so as a result, 7 of my friends and I have actually filed a lawsuit against the state of Florida and its leaders because we believe that the state is not upholding its legal duties to protect our water, our land, our environment, and our atmosphere by burning fossil fuels and releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide. So, as a remedy, we're asking that the state and its leaders will make laws and plans that will help us cut back and ultimately eliminate our carbon emissions. So, although we filed in 2018, we had our very first hearing a year ago, last summer in June 2020, due to the reassignment of judges 3 separate times. And at the end of the hearing, the judge did rule to dismiss our case on the basis that the topic of climate change is a political question that he does not believe he has the authority to rule over, even though Article 3 of the United States Constitution explicitly says that the judiciary has authority over maritime issues, which our case falls under. So we then filed for an appeal, which last month was denied. But however, my friends and I are still very optimistic about this case, and there are more steps that we can take to try and work with our government. Our lawyers have been in discussion about all the different opportunities, so we're encouraged by where we're about to head. Now you may be asking yourself, why are young people taking such ridiculous actions to sue their governments? Well, the reality that we face requires us to think boldly and to be aggressive. A lot of politicians are more concerned about protecting antiquated technologies, fossil fuels, than they are about protecting our future. So, of course, none of us expected to sue anyone for anything, especially at the ages of 18. But we each believe that we are running out of time and we have to do everything possible before it's too late. And we are forced to watch our planet burn, sink, and die. Luckily, there's good news. We've gone through a major societal shift before, and we can do it again. None of us travel around by a horse-drawn buggy or wagon. But if it were the 1700s, that was the state of the art in transportation and is exactly how we would have traveled. If it were the late 1800s to early 1900s, chances are you might have gotten around in a new invention called the automobile, like this one. And I suspect that some of the same people who made those carriages and wagons or cared for the horses that pulled them found jobs in the innovative new automobile industry. And even before long, in just a few years, I suspect that most people will be driving cars like this one, powered by a battery. So people adapted and they transitioned, and that is the exact same thing that we must do in the energy industry. And it's already beginning. Car manufacturers and companies like General Motors, Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, and Jaguar have all begun to shift towards selling products that are solely electric. Car companies and other such companies all over the country have promised that by a certain date, all their products will be electric. So that's very encouraging. Of course, we need to focus on the solutions that cut back our carbon emissions. And another great example of that is renewable energy, like solar power. Scientists predict that 50% of Florida's energy needs could actually come from the sun by 2045 if we were to just start taking that goal seriously. That could happen in a lot of our lifetimes. So, after learning about multiple solar ordinances in California, I thought that would be a great idea here in the Sunshine State where I live, as Florida is known. So I wrote a letter to about a dozen mayors and I asked them if they would be interested in writing a solar law. The mayor of the city of South Miami, Mayor Philip Stoddard, was the first to respond. So he and I began to write our very own solar law together. And after working many months on the law and speaking in front of the commission and the mayor and rewriting the budget, South Miami actually became the very first city in the state of Florida and made Florida the second state in the United States to have a law that requires that any new construction of a home or material renovation of an existing house must install the maximum amount of solar panels on their roof. And while I can vote now, I'm 21, I didn't yet have a vote when I helped Mayor Stoddard write this law and implement it. I was 16, 17 years old. So if anyone of any age wants to create a solar law in their very own city to help make our planet a more sustainable place, this is something that anyone can do regarding any sort of topic that they're passionate about. It starts with reaching out to local politicians, mayors, commissioners, sharing your ideas, and of course, getting involved. So, as I conclude my comments today, allow me to take you back to Mathis and Hammock one more time. As much as I love the place and places like it all over South Florida, I do hope that the day will come when sea level rise does not threaten our region's very existence. I would welcome the opportunity to work on something other than filming videos at dawn on a Sunday morning, like the one that I showed you earlier. And as much as I love the magazine, I would be happy to not spend the day in a dress climbing in mangroves and standing in salt water during a National Geographic photo shoot just to bring awareness to our climate crisis. It would be great to not have to do those things. But I will continue to fight this fight for as long as I have to, and I would encourage all of you to fight with me, to not give up hope, to realize that, of course, we will have setbacks, but what we're fighting for is far too important to give up hope. All over the planet, youth are standing up and using their voices to speak on behalf of our Earth because we're fed up. We're tired of the inaction. That's what you're going to hear. That's what you have heard from me, and probably what you'll hear from a few students in a couple minutes. But that to me gives me the greatest hope for our future. Hope that the youth that we see all over the world will one day replace our current politicians, implement fantastic, innovative projects, and will finally see progress in the right direction being made. So I would encourage you to fight along with us and to support us in this very important endeavor. I want you to continue fighting, to continue to have hope no matter how dark things are on a given day. We don't really have another choice. We have to protect these special places because if we don't solve this problem, cherished places like Mathis and Hammock Park, Miami Beach, the Florida Keys, the Everglades will disappear. They'll be lost forever. They'll become extinct, as will places just like it all over the world. My children, your grown children, may never get to learn how to swim in a place like Matheson, and to me, that's unacceptable. But thankfully, I'm positive that if you simply pursue your passions, if you're willing to truly make sacrifices, encourage the youth of today to keep fighting, support them, fight alongside them, each of us can make a difference. No matter who you are, where you're from, what your age is, or what your challenges might be, you have a voice. And it's my experience that people will listen to you. If you don't speak up and out, then none of us have the right to complain. But if you have a concern, an idea, a passion, I would encourage you to share it with your community and the world. And what I think you will find is that you will become a part of the solution because people will listen. Thank you again for having me here today.